we're going to be doing a back and forth kind of like draft style. We've kind of selected in each category how many noms we're going to do. So some will be like 3 or 4, some will be 5. You said stuff that doesn't get love. Let's just start with the most underrated. We're doing 5 nominees
Do it.
each of this. And I'll go first. I'll throw
Go.
out most underrated. And I've shouted out a couple times on the podcast, but I'm going to give you Kneecap. It's one of my favorite
Mm,
movies of last year. I believe had a good shot at getting that best international nomination. It missed out at the Oscars, which is where I think it really qualifies for most underrated. I shed some tears at the end of this movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like this is it's funny because it's like mostly just a comedy story about these 3 guys who are forming a rap group, right? Like it's a musical biopic with a background and story that is deeply embedded in politics, and in language and culture. And there's some really powerful stuff at the end of the movie.
Ah, fuck it. Encore.
Fucking kanskje een makkeries. Mariak Pentila, Mariak Sneezy was a cocktail brand for unleashing the beast. He wore a mop for night at least. Dreadjella, he's beating some fella. Tahan or you see him shot and it's for sure straight and cellar. Fucked into the back of the Jeep, he falls asleep. He does it every week. Chucky or la, get the Brits out loud. A one-way ticket, please, I've lost my bus pass.
I really recommend any person would check this out and also kind of like do some research into the background of like this real group and like the things they're saying, their things they're supporting. Michael Fassbender, if that's a draw for you right there, plays a fun role. He plays with the dad of one of these guys in an intense kind of like RRA on the run guy role. And this movie definitely deserves some love.
I mean, you got me hooked with Fassbender, so that's an easy yes. But that is your top underrated flick of the year. So I love that. Definitely have to check that out. But yeah, just the
I
story
mean, are you
sounds
gonna
really
give?
fun.
I'm trying to not do overlap with necessarily my favorite, like my top
Okay,
movie.
you're being strategic with your picks more than that's
Yeah,
your most underrated.
not too much overlap. I'm trying to spread the love.
I love it. What's a good first pick? That was not on my board. I did not see that, unfortunately. But for my first one, I mean, it's kind of similar. I could go a bunch of different directions. I think with my first pick, I am going to take Driveway Dolls. I feel like this is a movie that I've seen a lot of hate on. Of course, it is directed by Coen brother Ethan. No other Coen brother involved.
Interestingly, maybe a little ghost directed by his wife Trisha Cook. That's an interesting situation. Like early on in the career, only one Cohen brother would be credited, but they both directed it. Now you've got again one Cohen brother and Ethan credited, but his wife, I think, ostensibly a driving creative force here as well. Some of the hate I think came from me, Kody, but continue.
A little bit, but I think in general it's just not a very, beloved movie by a lot of people, which I understand it, but at the same time, I think the main two's chemistry is great. Margaret Qualley, which I'll talk about a few other times on here, I think had a just amazing year. And maybe her accent isn't the best, but I think the character development between her and the other main girl, Geraldine Viswanathan.
Nathan.
I'm getting all the great names off the bat here, but I thought that like their chemistry is actually really really fun. It's a really cool coming of age story with obviously a couple of queer characters.
She's in Thunderbolts, right?
Oh, is she? Oh, I don't know. Who does she play?
I think she replaced whoever
Yeah,
Iowa.
it looks like she's on the cast. Anyways, I think the plot is like a classic Coen Brothers plot where it's just a mix up of, these people thought they were doing an easy job. It ends up that they did the
Hijinks.
job that these other people were supposed to be doing, and then they have to get tracked down. So I think it's like a, typical Coen plot. So I like that aspect of it. And then the performances back it up too. You got a little Beanie Feldstein in there. You got a really fun Pedro Pascal cameo. Matt Damon is in it. So I think there's fun elements throughout for me, and it's not this high class Oscar movie by any means, but I thought it was a fun little romp in a nice coming of age kind of dramedy with a couple of characters falling in love. I think for me this probably is just from the general audience reviews probably my most underrated of the year. I had a good time.
I like that pick. It definitely wasn't at the top of my list, but I can see why this one really fits into like the types of movies you like. And hey,
For sure.
coming this year, we got another one, Honey Don't, right?
Facts.
With Margaret Qualley.
Keep pumping them out. Yeah, I mean Margaret's been cooking, and I trust her, so I'm definitely excited for that.
I'm up next, and I think I'm gonna go Rebel Ridge here, which is A movie that I probably did like more than Kneecap, and maybe even a little bit more underrated than Kneecap, but these are all nominations. These are in no particular order. A Netflix movie, maybe that's why I didn't pick it first, because I don't want to give love to Netflix right off the bat.
Respect.
But this movie to me was a really fun thriller with a really interesting concept. Essentially an action movie where the lead character is entirely non-lethal. It's, you know, kind of a Batman thing, but like set in a real world context with heavy like race implications, heavy policing and state implications. It also, you know, tells a really important important story about like civil asset forfeiture and seizure from cops, and the way that can just like take money from anybody if they say it's a part of an investigation. It has its flaws, and I think it drags a little bit. And then there's this, you know, there's some like addiction subplot side stuff that doesn't work for me. And but like Jeremy Saulnier directing, Aaron Pierre as a lead, incredible. This guy gonna be in Lanterns coming up next. Also was in the Mufasa movie, but like he's one of my new faves moving forward, and is, you know, maybe gonna pop up on this list as well.
Yeah, definitely same for me. I have very similar thoughts on Aaron Pierre, but and Jack for Lanterns. I think that looks awesome.
Dumb promotional image to release. I hate that.
I actually liked it. Just him and Kyle Chandler just walking down the road. Come on, man. Classic.
I mean, it looks better than Nathan Fillion's dumbass.
True, he looks his stupid ass bowl cut. But this is a great movie. This was one of my favorites of the year for sure. I didn't have it in my underrated list because I think we just both enjoyed it a ton. Maybe I overlooked it for a little bit. But I think just like you said, there's a lot of thought-provoking stuff with like the investigation and, you know, how they're dealing with this whole case. But also too, just like the opening scene instantly kind of brings you into the action. So I really like the intense pacing off the bat. Just like that opening scene is so intense. And then as you work more into the story, it just gets more and more interesting. So I never felt the pacing hurt it too much for me. But yeah, Aaron Pierre is an absolute animal. And this is one for me. I haven't rewatched yet, but probably on all the movies we'll talk about today, this is one that I want to rewatch quickly. That came out in 2024, which you can't say about a ton of movies, I don't feel like. So I think that's a great pick.
And, you know, I've seen the critiques a little bit where like, oh, it's propaganda, and I can get that. And in the final act, spoiler, like there's a twist and turn of like,
yeah,
who helps him, who saves them, even in the final moments. But like, first of all, it's also just a fucking Netflix movie. It's a movie made by like a big corporation on a streaming service, and I think it's pushing a lot of ideals that are like close enough that you can accept. Like, at the end of the day, in a real world situation, how is this character going to get out of this? Like, what possible way do they survive? Like, it kind of has to happen this way. And to me, again, I'm going to say spoiler alert, fast forward like 30 seconds here.
Oh,
the lead cop played by Don Johnson, shout out Dakota Johnson, her father shoots another police officer in the leg. And I think that's like the only moment where like the other cops are like, oh, that's too far. Like, it's when one of their own, and it's the guy who's like been secretly informing him, Pam's ex-fiance,
Roy.
Like, to me, I think that's where everyone draws the line. It's like, to me, it's examining the way this is a brotherhood and the way this society protects each other. It's really not about like cops saving the day at the end of the movie. Like, they kind of just lose.
Yeah, I mean, the cops are the antagonists in my eyes, for sure. And then obviously you have, you know, infolds that, you know, help out in the end just because they see all this crazy shit going down. So I think it's a fair reaction. But yeah, I didn't think he was saying anything too negative kind of on either side. I think it was just kind of telling a fun story. I think
it walks a good line of where it can be like a movie that plays on Netflix on the front page and people aren't, like, nobody's too outraged about it. And maybe that's because it's underrated.
Yeah. And also too, I think the action is awesome. You like you said too, for him being, you know, this non-lethal guy, I mean, he goes absolutely ham and kicks some ass. So I think Aaron Pierre, I'm ready to see anything else that he's in going forward.
Have you seen Green Room, Kody?
I have not. That's been on my list for a while because obviously you got, you know, Charles Xavier in there too. Yeah, so one of my favorite actors. Is he in Green Room? I did not know that.
Well, it's the same director. Jeremy Saulnier is the.
Oh, it's the director connection. Interesting. I mean, from what you said about Green Room, it's a bit of a wackier script than probably Purple Ridge. But
a lot, you know, similar ideas and very prescient for this time, I would say. You know, it is a movie about neo-Nazis. Patrick Stewart is one of them in the film, even.
I mean, that makes it better already. So I'm on board.
What's your next pick, Kody?
My next one, I'm going to take Hundreds of Beavers with my
This
second
was the
one.
next on my list, Kody. Go off.
I love this movie. I think similar to Drive Away Dolls, this is like a movie made perfectly for me. Obviously, just with kind of the dumb, fun humor, just like the way it was made. I off the bat, I think is very, very interesting. I mean, it's obviously a joke of the whole movie of there's people dressed up in beaver suits. There's not CGI beavers. So it takes a second, and pretty much the whole landscape for the most part when he's traveling around is, not real as well. So it took a second for me to kind of understand what was going on. But we're basically just in like this cartoon world where the cartoon characters are played by human people, which I think is a really fun idea. But also at the same time, there's little to no dialogue. You have obviously the main guy who has a great name, Ryland Brixton Colt Hughes, who plays Gene, who's our main character,
And
obviously.
also, like, I believe the director and creative force behind the movie as well.
Oh, nice, yeah, okay. So he's doing a lot of different hats here, which is awesome. But just like his character setup is fun, obviously, of him just trying to do everything with the survival instincts. But then, like 30 minutes halfway through the movie, there's a really big like emotional hit that I was not expecting for a movie like this. And then the movie after that kind of goes into its main points. But I just think like start to finish, I was entertained with this. It had me laughing. Some of the gags are dumb and some of them repeat them a little bit too much. Some of like the spitting stuff, but everything in between, I just really loved about this movie.
I'll shout out Mike Cheslick, who was the director of the film, and then it was co-written by him and Ryland Tews, but
Gotcha.
he said star of it. The whole campaign of this movie, obviously, like it premiered at a festival in 2022, but then another one in 2023, and then finally got a real theatrical release in 2024. They had offers to be bought by different distributors, but none of them would guarantee more than a week in theaters. They would be say, we'll give you 1 week in theaters and then you're going straight to a streaming service. So by like staying independent, they kind of did a platform release where like they went to a theater here and did a road show, and we'll go here and we'll show it for a weekend. So it kind of went all across the country in 2024, and now it's just available to watch free on YouTube with ads. So
Shout out.
every fucking episode I'm showing off a little piece of physical media behind me on the shelf, but I got this wood book. They have steel books, Kody. This is the Hundreds of Beavers numbered to 750. It's number 249 of 750, and inside of it you've got the Blu-ray Hundreds of Beavers.
That was electric. The wood case.
The wood book, printed real wood. Collector's item.
It's that good where I would get that too. So I love that. I think the wood case as well just adds to that perfect touch. But yeah, I love this movie. It, like I said, I think it's just like a perfect movie for me as well, where you can watch it over and over and over again, and it's not going to get old for me.
It speaks to that the wood book in a silly way. Like it speaks to the handmade quality of the film. Like it was just like a small group of guys who came together, did all the VFX themselves, kind of set up green screens, shot stuff in the fucking, I think it's Minnesota, like backyard wilderness.
Right. Yeah.
And made something that's really funny. I think this would be great with a crowd. Would be great to do like a commentary episode with, a drinking game episode with. Sit around with your friends and hang out and watch Hundreds of Beavers.
Do it. Yeah, for a shoestring budget, like you're saying. I mean, it plays into that with some of the gags, but it still does look pretty decent. You got black and white elements, you got, cartoon elements, but it all somehow meshes together really well.
Next up, I'm going to grab Kinds of Kindness,
Ooh,
which
okay.
I feel like was a hotly anticipated movie, but then it completely fell flat. I remember even if you're like really into the whole like box office world where they do like limited releases and they say like this movie opened on 4 screens to $100,000 average, like they get really intense. And Kinds of Kindness in limited release in like New York and LA on like 6 screens or whatever had the great opening, like sold out, everyone loved it. And then like when it platformed a little bit wider, it like made no money and no one cared about it. And obviously it's a Yorgos Lanthimos film, but it's the follow-up to Poor Things, the almost Best Picture winner, Best Actress winner film. Unfortunately, I think for the general audience, it was a big fuck you and a kind of like, hey, remember who I am, and a little bit of an alienation. And also like it's a triptych story and anthology piece and it's fucking weird, but I really liked it. I thought it had a lot of interesting things to say about like power and control, and like each one is really unique in its story. Jesse Plemons, fantastic. Emma Stone, fantastic.
I think it's okay. I am obviously a massive Yorgos guy, but I think for the stuff I've seen from him, this is definitely my least favorite. And it's kind of just because you said of the three different stories, there wasn't like a main theme or anything that kind of blended them together for me that was like they deserve to be kind of one movie. So I think that was just confusing for me. But I agree. I think the performances are great. Obviously, Emma Stone is awesome. Willem Dafoe in the first one, I think, might be my favorite of all of them. And then obviously Clemens is just great throughout. So, and it's Yorgos writing, like you said, it's weird, uncomfortable, weird stuff, but I still enjoy it. Like I'll watch anything from Yorgos. So this was not one like I disliked by any means. Kind of just that middle ground of I don't really understand the construction, but everything else about it I did enjoy.
I liked it more than Poor Things, but not as much as The Lobster.
No, I think Four Things is by far superior. But fair. Yorgos is Yorgos, so I mean I can't argue with it too much.
Doggy with no leash, I am free and I'm yummy. Moving bodies sucking me, they need a bit of honey. I see them drool, they could fill a whole pool. Baby slide me in and out, yeah I'm ready for the news. Yeah I'm ready for the truth, and I always make it purr. Never fuck with the rubber, so you can call me your mother. Let me teach you how to please me, how to do me, how to squeeze it. I'm so easy, you can tease me. All I need is that you see me. Do my nails, cut my hair.
My next one, it's gonna be Woman of the Hour.
There we go, Kody. I haven't seen it. You got me.
Boom. That was easy.
You don't watched it, but I did.
It's solid. Anna Kendrick is obviously the star, and her directorial debut as well. In my eyes, it's kind of just like it's like Zodiac, but except it's a little bit shorter, well, a lot shorter actually, and it's just about Anna Kendrick on a dating game, the dating game. Yeah, I think it's a famous TV show or whatever, so people probably know it. But it's not really. It's more about this serial killer who is kind of taking out women in LA during the 70s. And I think the direction is awesome. I also think the performances are great. This guy who's playing the main serial killer guy, Daniel Zavada, is more of an unknown, and I thought he was pretty damn scary. And the direction was fun too, where you don't see everything kind of on screen, but you do get hints of like this person's probably dead, that person's probably dead, just because they've had interactions with this crazy guy. And then he shows up on the show with Anna Kendrick, and is kind of charming her up and stuff. Like he's the coolest one on the show. So I thought their interactions on the show and after the show were just really great throughout. Also, Tony Hale, who is from Arrested Development, plays like the game show host. He's great comedic timing. He's got fun.
I'm a Tony Hale head.
Oh, you have to be. He's got great 70s sideburns as well. And it just shows kind of, how much garbage women had to go through, in any industry during the 70s. So good commentary throughout from like a Zodiac serial killer movie, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that one out. I know Mina enjoyed it. Is Anna Kendrick now like on your list of directors you're watching out for?
I think so. Yeah. Directorial debut wise, like I said, I think that's pretty strong to come out of the gates like this. And she's been an actor for forever and so much different stuff. I feel like she early on in her career was kind of just like, yeah, I'll literally do everything, which I kind of like. So to see her, behind the camera and actually making all these really, really awesome choices, I'm definitely down to see anything that she goes on next.
Cool that she did something genre like that. We need people making movies that are fun and good, even if they are for Netflix.
True. A couple Netflix fixes here. Yeah, we're gonna we're not sponsored today, guys. I swear.
It's okay.
So, that might be the last Netflix movie I talk about, to be fair. No Amelia Perez talk.
Next one I will pick is the a Criterion Channel watch, Kody. So you can go check that out. It's much better than Netflix.
True.
Janus Films film called Evil Does Not Exist. It premiered at the 2023 New York Film Festival. I didn't get a chance to watch it there, but then it officially was released in 2024 this year. If you remember the film Drive My Car, that was Best Picture nominated a couple years ago. This is the same director, Ryusuke Hamaguchi. I literally just watched this film right before we recorded this episode. So I'm still kind of processing it. The ending is like it's a lot. Very intense, the movie, I believe, uses mostly like non like working actors, just kind of like real people in a community. It's a story about like a big corporation coming into a small town in Japan, wanting to build a glamping site and not really having a ton of interest necessarily, maybe, and the impact that they're going to have on the community and the pollution it might cause. And then it kind of goes from there and tells a little bit more, much smaller character, intimate relationship story for the last like 40 minutes of people kind of just interacting. It was really powerful, and I love Drive My Car. This is another one that I'm gonna really probably just have to like keep reading about.
Yeah, that does sound interesting, especially with that director. So definitely one I'll have to stick on my list.
Next up, Cody, what do you got?
This is pick number 4. I think I'm gonna take Maxine with my 4th pick. For me, I like this trilogy a lot. I think X is probably still my favorite of the trilogy. And I don't think I'm as high on as I'm not as high on Pearl as some other people, but I thought Maxine was a really fun middle ground between those two, of kind of bringing it back to this Mia Goth character that we got in the first one, and kind of just showing her continuation on of what happened after this. So I really like her character in the first, of like, oh, and I guess it's kind of true. She's going to be this big star, and this is going to, project her career to stardom. And then we kind of see the reality of that in this early on. And then it's just a fun supporting cast too. I mean, you got Giancarlo Esposito, Bobby Cannavale is fun, Halsey, Lily Collins. I mean, some of these people go down fairly quickly, but
Shout out to Thunder Force, Bobby Cannavale.
Kevin Bacon as well, I think is awesome. Little Sophie Thatcher thrown in there. So I think it's a really good cast. And then of course T West is back to direct the third of the franchise, and I just think it's fun throughout. Obviously, there's it's basically Psycho in some parts, and then it really does.
This
lean
is the house
into-
from Psycho, from the movie Psycho from 1967. This is the movie. My name is Elizabeth Debicki. This is the. Have you seen the movie Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock? This is the house from
Yeah,
Psycho.
Debicki. I'm kind of hot and colder on her. I don't know if
Well, it's not her fault that she had to say that line or ADR that line. So
I'll
people
blame
knew
her
that
anyways.
was the house from Psycho.
But I think this is criminally underrated because it has gotten just not the best reviews, and I don't think it's any worse than Pearl by any means. So, like I said, I would probably put it as my second favorite of the franchise. I kind of just love this franchise. Like, give me 5 to 10 of these movies, and I would be very, very happy. So, shout out Mia Goth. I think finally she is branching off and working with other directors, which is going to be really fun to see.
This movie just didn't really work for me. Like, I understand what it was trying to do. 70s giallo slasher horror movies, kind of dumb
Hell
twists.
Yeah.
Like
In LA,
yeah,
I mean we've seen it before.
It.
We've seen it before, a ton of times. But I enjoyed the stylistic, and I feel like any sort of movie T West is going to make is going to look pretty awesome. And then, I mean, Mia Goth at the helm. I think I will literally watch anything that she's starring in as well too. So I think it's more of the people behind the scenes. Maybe the story isn't the standout thing, but I think it is underrated in my eyes for sure.
I'm going to take The People's Joker here for
Oh.
underrated, which is one I would recommend. Again, this is like a weird, like Hundreds of Beavers, where it was like a 2022, but then finally was able to get released in 2024 officially. One of the better like comic book movies released in the last like 5 or 6 years. Obviously, you've got stuff like the Batman, but like there's been a lot of slop, and this is managed to both be funny, but also like a cool adaptation of like the Joker story. And it's pure parody at the end of the day, in an age, in a time when stuff like Amelia Perez is being platformed, and even like SNL is getting a lot of love and hailing right now. This movie kind of deconstructs comedy in this era, being trans in this time. Very prevalent and very important to look at that. And also just like through the lens of someone who is like nerdy and grew up a fan of like Batman and the Joker, and wanted to make something that's like collage and slapstick and thrown together and mishmashed, that I think is really cool, and would recommend everyone check out.
It's not tied into anything. Like, it is just straight up parody. I guess I don't even understand like what this movie is, if I'm being honest.
I think like it was made for like $15,000. I think the most impressive thing, David Zaslav is a terrible guy, but somehow he did not like stop the release of this film, and he didn't like prevent that from like the DC apparatus as a whole just kind of allowed this to happen, and it was released in theaters mostly like independently. Again, it's not like it doesn't have some big distribution model. It's available on streaming now. But yeah, it's a parody of the DC comic book characters with Vera Drew, the director and writer, playing the lead character, the People's Joker, fully purple suited, white face, makeup.
Oh, this checks out because I mean, obviously being a comic book fan, it does sound just interesting in the concept. But
yeah, she kind of like it examines like her childhood, and again, it's a trans story. It's a coming of age. Like how did we get here? It's UCB Comedy Live is this parody show that she's trying to get on and become a part of.
Okay.
There's a lot of like also I think in jokes, maybe stuff even in the New York comedy scene stuff. It was really fun and really cool, and it's heavily underrated.
It sounds very interesting. Yeah, I think that's a great rec for myself as well. So I love that. But beautiful. So my last pick, I have a couple that I like. I think I'm gonna take Carry On though. I mean, I think a decent amount of people saw this, but I think for me, like this is going to be a rewatchable Christmas movie, which I don't know if I have that many that I actually like. Obviously, Taron Egerton and then Jason Bateman, kind of the main two in this. And I think just like that duo, I did not expect going in at all. Kind of that they would carry the movie or that I would really enjoy that. So shout out Taron. Always a great actor, obviously, and him doing more action stuff I love. Obviously, I'm a big Kingsman fan as well. But Bateman, I don't know if I've seen a role where, I mean, he's a dick in a lot of his roles, but I don't think he's been like a pure evil bad guy like he is in this one. So I would love to see him in more antagonistic roles. This is another category we'll do, but I would love to see a sequel where both of those guys come back and we kind of run it back. So overall, again, maybe a lot of people saw it, but I think in my eyes, I just rate it very highly just because it is a Christmas movie and you don't have a ton of good ones in the action genre. And yeah, the performances I thought were great.
I also haven't checked this movie out yet.
Oh, wow. That's actually surprising too.
I am a Bateman guy, but it just seemed like dumb, cheesy action. The car scene kind of seemed stupid. People were like, oh, this is so sick. It's just like a bad one, or like, come on,
it's good action,
came out 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think the camera work is the coolest thing about that scene. But yeah, it's a good point. I mean,
it's CGI. It's not even real. Like, what do you mean the camera work?
The CGI camera work. I don't care. I mean, in the movie, it looks sick. The green screen
watch
doesn't
Roadhouse if you want to see people fucking punch each other with CGI.
Yeah. Hold that thought. I got a lot to say more about Roadhouse later, but you should check out Carry On. I think it's awesome.
I'll fire it up one day. Okay, you can't say anything about the movies, so just real quick, any honorable mentions here?
So my honorable mentions, I had Sonic 3. I really love that. Lisa Frankenstein, I almost picked. Shout out Cage Tober.
I liked that way more than I expected.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And then I had The Fall Guy as well. I really like that.
Two really quick. Love Lies Bleeding, which again was an early one that I enjoyed more. Again, weird like neo-noir that maybe goes a little too off the rails near the end. And then Immaculate, which Sydney Sweeney, gets a lot of hate. Maybe not her greatest acting performance, but I really liked, again, the ending of this film, the plotting of this film. You wonder why there's a bunch of horror movies about like women's bodies and forced pregnancies and, having to bear the unborn, fucking devil in this modern times. I don't know. I can't imagine why.
Strange, but they got Sydney Sweeney to do it. So shout out to him. I haven't checked that out, but I'm a Sweeney fan, so that'll be on my list as well.
Let's pick a winner now, Kody. What are you thinking?
I think we both had good picks. I would be happy with Rebel Ridge or Hundreds of Beavers. I think those would probably be my top two.
I think those are the two that I'm leaning. Honestly, I like Rebel Ridge more as a movie. I think we should give it the award here.
I'm down. Big ups, Aaron Pierre and Netflix. Shout out.
We'd love to give. Hey, this is their first Cappy.
True. Their first and only.
What you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.